This looks.
Push it down.
There we go. All right.
Doesn't matter. Work.
Success.
Whatever you did, something undid it.
Whoops.
I have to stay on my finger on the button, right?
All right. Let's,
Okay, the light's off.
there we go. Great. Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, February 15, 2018, and this is the Board of Selectmen's meeting. First up on our agenda is a review of the proposed construction schedule for the Town Hall portico project. Carl Packard. Come on down. Good evening. How are you? Stand myself. Pleasure.
Hi, Bob Skansky.
Keep Carl coming.
Carl's been doing a great job working with us on
Okay.
the project, and he's here to give us an update and tell you how ready we are.
Okay.
Good thing it's a small boat. I also brought a copy of the schedule.
I think it's the same one.
Oh, you have
It
it?
hasn't
Oh, okay.
changed, right?
No?
They did get one in their packet, but.
Okay.
We're good.
Great.
We're good.
Maybe that's one.
I don't know who's from the Historical Commission.
Well, we started working on this last fall and did measuring to be able to do the work on it. Had a structural engineer take a look at it. I know there's been a structural engineer who looked at it previously. And as far as this one of the same issues has not gone away, which is the foundation and the fact that it doesn't have a frost foundation, and you can see that it's been deteriorated. But other than that, except for certain areas that are decayed, and there's certain decay at the bottom of the wooden columns, but this is all repairable. And it's not something that you have to take the whole thing down and replace it with, something else. Obviously, to replace the foundation and the platform, we have to take the columns and we shore it up. And take the columns down, repair them, put in the new foundation, and put the columns back and paint it.
And there's a fair amount of replacement that needs to be done up high where all the rot is, but
Yes, yeah.
the key point being though that the columns can be repaired and don't have to be replaced.
Yeah, there are techniques for just basically they're made like a cider barrel or something like that, and so you're just replacing the stairs. Well, that's basically it. We'll also be taking the pilasters off and fastening them more securely to the building with blocking up against the brick, something that that wood can get fastened to. And let's see, what else? So, the new foundation, we would use as much as possible the existing brick, replacing it where necessary with new brick to match. And also, the lower step is now concrete. I don't know whether that was put in, I think, 1906, whether that was originally that way in 1906, and for some reason they didn't have the granite or something, but I would recommend putting in the granite at the bottom step. New roof up top. Basically, that's the story, really. Got some details. Another thing we'll be doing, we'll be inserting some lumber into the, what's called the entablature, basically the beam part of the structure, and tying that and the columns down to the new foundation with a threaded rod, a threaded rod. And fasten it.
Right.
You know. Obviously, there'll be a lot of, most of the roof, there are probably 2 grooves there, one above the other, and a lot of that will be removed and repriced. Yeah.
So based upon your project plan, advertising for bids due, basically construction will start roughly in the June timeframe?
Yes, yep,
And then we'll be done somewhere in November.
yep. Yeah, I figure about 150 days to do the project. It's not a terribly complex. There's no lead time items.
We'll need to block off the lower area here as the work area for the project, so the only way to access will be to come up straight up this way, as many people do. No one will be able to cut across the front.
Okay. Super. Looks good.
So,
Excellent.
any questions? I'm very excited. We've got a timeline where we're going to be meeting with the Historical Commission in another week or so, I believe. We'll be getting in front of the Design Review Board. Should be one meeting, really, because we're not changing the look and feel of anything.
Right.
In parallel, Carl will be working with Mass Historic. And then, he'll be preparing the bid documents, ready to go out to bid. And between Carl's own estimating and the not professional, I don't mean you're not professional.
The guy who does cost estimating only.
The cost estimating, I mean, we're
Yeah.
looking like we have more than sufficient funds to cover the project right now either, so we're not worried about the cost of it right now either.
Okay, great. Super. No, good.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I
Yes.
just have one question. A former director of DPW, Harold Brown, he took care of a lot of the stuff that we thought we would have to with interfacing with Mass Historical and everything. Am I assuming correctly that Red Hawk or the persons managing this are going to do all of that interface because the town hall is under a preservation
Yeah.
restriction? I mean, this is just incredible because we expected a lot of, work.
With Mass Historical?
Yeah, simply because of Administrator Lowe remembers, we had to notify them, of course, that this needed work. And I just wondered if we don't drop the ball on anything we have to do to make sure that this is all reviewed by them.
No, it'll be absolutely all reviewed by them.
Yeah.
Carl will be driving that.
Yeah, there's an
Excellent.
application form. It's not terribly
Right.
complex.
that's
And basically, we
Just
do,
wonderful.
of course, the local historical commission sign off is very helpful.
Right, now we have a
Mass
meeting on the
Historical, yeah.
21st, and then we'll have 2 in March, but unfortunately, our first March meeting is going to be a meeting up at the library on the 7th. Did you want to be fit in on next Wednesday, the 21st?
That was the plan, yes.
Oh, okay, good, because I wasn't aware of that. but-
I thought Joe had requested that, so yes, we would like to be we'd like the project on the agenda for the 21st. We actually think it's so straightforward, we'll be able to do it in one meeting, so the 21st would be great.
Great, well, I've already put out the public meeting notice, but I'll make sure it's on the agenda. And may we schedule you, like at 6:15, or would you prefer to be later? We usually meet from 6 to 7:30.
I would prefer earlier.
Earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
yeah.
how about 6:15?
That sounds good.
Hopefully there won't be a
Just do
snowstorm
wanna
this time.
Check that.
And we meet in this room here.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And-
Super.
Wednesday's supposed to be in the 60s, so we should be fine.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
All right,
Carl.
thank you. Nice
Thank you.
to see you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you. It's good to see this going ahead.
Yes.
It's a nice building, of course, with Greek revival styles. Just a very beautiful, pleasant kind of architecture.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much. Next up on our agenda is to discuss the potential gift of land that abuts the conservation property of Wand Hills, including a portion of the impoundment and associated Beaver Dam and Green Road, from Susan Jones.
As we get started, I'd like to say that, Ms. Jones, please come up. I've just got to do some clarification here. The property in question abuts some conservation land known as the Hanson property. My property is directly across the street from the Hanson land, so I'm not a direct abutter. After consultation with the town administrator, there's no need for me to recuse myself because of my proximity.
Okay.
So I just wanted to get that out front.
Nice to meet you, gentlemen. Thank you for making time tonight. So we own these two parcels of land, and presently, this is kind of where the beaver pond is, and the conservation land goes. You know, the pit trail goes on the beaver pond, goes here, and we'd like to try and peel off this portion and donate that to the town, and protect that, because right now there's no easement for people walking across that, and that's the way that property's being used.
So we're just putting this, so this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the property that you own currently, and
One of, that's
Yeah, one of the
this piece, you
parcels.
see that shape in
Yeah.
orange right there? That's the shape right there. So we're keeping a piece of it as a potential, buildable piece at some point. Not that we want to do that, but we want to hold on to that piece. And this is the piece that we're trying to take the piece that's closest to the beaver pond where there's trail.
Right, so basically you're sort of dissecting.
Yeah,
So it would be the piece closest to you.
Right.
Is that half, okay.
and we had put this plan together in the past, thinking we were going to go forward with a certain configuration, but in looking at it and considering some of the details, in order to go through the steps of making a gift out of this, we will be redrawing this plan and showing an easement over to this parcel, I guess, is that the terminology for it.
Rebecca, if this were to go through as we're discussing tonight, would the conservation land be contiguous there, or would there still be a gap where someone walking around the pond would be on private property?
it would be contiguous.
Okay.
So this is, the interest in this, we informally talked about it at the conservation meeting, and again, this is more an informal information seeking to see if Susan will continue with the process, to see if the town has interest in it. But one of the main reasons is it has an informal easement right now, but that would be the missing piece to the puzzle, I guess you could say.
Would we have to do any type of title search and all that good stuff, I would imagine?
I would assume
I would
so.
assume so, yes.
okay.
So this is preliminary, obviously, not
Right.
looking for a vote of the board tonight.
Right.
This is informational, we start to get you familiar with the
Yeah,
problem.
the trail is used fairly frequently. There's a small 2 or 3 car parking lot right at the trailhead. And, there's a car in there all during the day, on Saturdays and Sundays, and frequently, and when the weather's good, more often during the summer and the spring. So, there's only one trail in. You either come out the same way or else you're gonna walk around. And right now, we've been kind enough to be using the easement that we have, but this,
There's no easement.
oh, I thought there was. Okay.
It's just an informal.
Okay.
People
I
are
believe
using.
there is a sign in place, though, that says you're now walking on private
Private
property.
property,
Right,
correct.
okay. So this would, make it be in the town's jurisdiction. It is a used walkway.
It's one of the most heavily used properties. And there are, just to clarify, I mean, it's not the only entrance and exit from the property. There are other trailhead, but that is one that's significant.
Yeah, my point was just, if you go in that way, you're either gonna go all the
Oh,
way
yes,
around, or you're gonna come out on the
Right.
same trail, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's really generous, and, I've done that walk, and, without that, you just have to go right, and it would kind of dead end
Right.
going around, so, it's really wonderful
And it's
that you're
beautiful.
considering this.
Property, like, land-wise, and the herons are down here, and of course now, the beavers are back here. So there's a lot of, interesting natural resources to people. We'd really like to see that
Yeah.
be protected for that, for use in that way.
The other wildlife aspect of it is, excuse me, on the windy, cold days, that area is completely surrounded by hills. So the deer and lots of other wildlife tend to congregate in that area. So having a larger protected conservation area would be better for them too.
Yeah, it's super. No. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so, there's a number of steps, and we'll work through with Rebecca. I think the timeline would be sometime in January, or, whenever we can make it happen, but it's sometime in early next year.
So it'll take
If
about
we
a
get
year.
all of the steps.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very
But
much for
before we do all
considering
of
this.
that,
Thank
we
you.
wanted to make sure that
No.
you're actually interested.
No, it's fine. It's fine, thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Runabout Green Road, I was one of the originators on the trails all throughout the town,
Yeah.
and I just want to say thank you. That is such a perfect place for the wildlife, and I was really concerned when I heard that there was going to be a lot sold and a house put up there, because it's a wonderful view, and just to observe wildlife, just to be at peace with yourself, it's all those things and more.
Yeah,
So I appreciate it. I'd love to chat with you sometime.
that would be great.
Yeah.
We'll be here full-time in the summer.
Okay.
Super. Great. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a request from Kristen Zena to hold the Bolton Youth Baseball's opening day parade on April 21st, 2018. Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. Kristen Peters, Bolton Youth Baseball. We are requesting the parade for opening day on Saturday, the 21st of April. I have an email from the police chief okaying the idea. I will be in contact with fire department and ambulance as they often lead the parade for us down Main Street, same parade route as every other year in the past, starting from Mechanic Street, Main Street to Waterfront to the baseball field.
Okay.
And we'll have the usual events and fun day for our kids, all that. So we are requesting that portion of the road be closed for the 15, 20 minutes it takes for us to get from all the kids lined up and parade down and open up the baseball season for the town.
Excellent.
All right?
Sounds good.
All right.
We need baseball season.
Yes, we
Baseball
do.
season, 60 degrees next week, I heard it.
I'll take a
There's
motion
a
to...
question?
Question, yes.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I just have a question. I've noticed when we have our Halloween parades and our 4th of July parades, the streets are always covered with litter and stuff, especially in the Halloween, because they have candy, they eat it, and they throw it on the floor. I was wondering if we might be able to, depending on this route, have some extra, like 5-gallon pails or something, so people could throw their stuff in those rather than all over the street. Because, our DPW is really busy and they can't go around and pick up the litter from these, so it's just a suggestion.
We can look into that.
Talk to the baseball board.
Yeah, we can look into that.
We get some volunteers to help encourage people to
Okay.
not throw their candy wrappers in the street.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. All right, I'll take a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a request for approval of revised signs at the Country Cupboard, 476 Main Street.
And we're expecting them in?
Yes,
Okay.
we are. Do you have any?
Well, then why don't we We're just a little bit ahead of
Yeah, we
schedule.
are.
Why don't we go off to the always welcome and greatly anticipated town administrator?
The one night I need Minuteman, I don't have a So update discussion on fire chief's retirement. It's widely known now, but I don't know that everybody knows it, that Chief Retzer is retiring at the end of June. And that the board is going to be needing to look at hiring a new fire chief. And so it's important to, it's certainly important to note Chief Metzger's contributions and thank him. He was going to be here tonight, but he's at the last minute, he was unavoidably not able to attend. Really just to get the discussion rolling on Selectmen's general thoughts on what the next steps are and that type of thing.
Yeah, well, I think we'll certainly, we appreciate John's tenure as chief, fire chief in town of Bolton. We appreciate that. I think probably it might make sense. I think we're having a joint meeting with the advisory committee on the 27th to discuss budget items, and I know that there were a couple of items related to adding some additional manpower to the day shift. So maybe it might be more appropriate to have, a little more detailed discussion, because obviously, depending on which way we go, we may have to incur some additional expense. And it probably makes sense to have that discussion with advisory and us at the same time. So I don't think we're probably prepared to go into any great detail in terms of options, but I think, we should be prepared to bandy that about with advisory, since there definitely is a financial implication in all of this.
How many hours has John worked a week?
It's not set. I mean, John is here. There's training on Tuesdays, so Tuesday nights, probably three hours or so. John comes in many times during his lunch hour during the week. I would say 2-3 days a week at least he's in at lunch hour. He's in on the weekends, so I would hazard to guess John is probably working at least 15 hours or so. I would guess 12 to 15 hours, and I may be selling him short, but I would say at a minimum.
And then he's getting a stipend of
$5,500
a year for that.
All right, so why don't we, we'll continue that discussion on the 27th with advisory. So, anything else?
Just an informational note, we submitted a grant application this week, this year's IT grant application. What we decided to pursue this year, one of the things that we learned from last year's grant application, which was pretty large, it was well over $100,000, entailed multiple projects, and one of the things we learned was the state wanted to see one project and not multiple projects. So we use, as you see every year, we have a standing article on the warrant to renew, pardon me, trying to breathe, our
Revolving account.
thank you so much. Revolving account for the fees that we collect, a percentage of the fees, 7.5% from our GOTMS system. And that's definitely a legacy system. GOTMS was bought by another company, Excella. They're not investing money in it. It's very much in maintenance mode. I come from the high-tech sector from years ago. We don't want to be running on a legacy system. We're setting ourselves up for problems down the road. So we brought in a couple of different vendors to demo products. The staff who would be involved with the system sat through the demonstrations. We selected a preferred vendor, got cost estimates from them, not cost estimates, quotes from them, and looked at what we would do for new equipment, and came up with a grant application of $25,400 to get the project done, which I think it's going to be an extremely competitive grant this year. I mean, when I say that, I mean, I think we're going to score very highly on the grant, and I'm very confident that we're going to get it. I don't usually say that, but so if I'm wrong, we'll have to edit this recording. But I really think this grant application is a winner. It'll get us on a much better platform than we're on now. Our application includes tablets for the inspectors, so the building inspector would have one, as would electrical and plumbing, and be able to do things real time. It's just a much better system, can tie into our GIS mapping and so forth, so I'm very excited about that, and staff worked very hard on pulling together criteria, and once again, Erica wrote the grant. She's really become our grant writer, and she does a really good job with it, so I'm very, very excited about that, and we should know in a couple of months whether or not we.
Okay, super. Okay. Anything else?
No, they're here now, so.
Okay. Come on down. Are you ready to?
I was waiting for Michelle.
Michelle's
Ah.
coming.
Yeah,
Okay.
she
Alright.
had the stuff, so.
Okay. Well, then maybe let's continue forging ahead, and we'll go to Board of Selectmen business, and then we can back up again. So we'll skip ahead to Board of Selectmen business. First up is public service announcements. This is something I do on a semi-periodic basis when I can remember to do it. A couple things. One, as you know, up at the transfer station, as you come up the road, there's a small red barn, if you will, or structure on the right-hand side as you crest the hill. That's the Boy Scout bottles and cans building, and I go to the transfer station every week, and people are doing a great job bringing their bottles and cans, the ones that have a deposit on them, but they're kind of missing the Boy Scout building, and they're putting them in the recycle bins up at the transfer station. Certainly would appreciate, you are separating out those things. If you could just keep the ones that are a deposit and help the Boy Scouts out. That's the main source of their revenue to fund events and activities and whatnot. So we greatly appreciate if you would do that. I talked to Don, and I think Don, maybe you haven't done it yet, but wanted to check with Joe to see whether or not they would be amenable to having another smaller sort of bin at the end of where the glass and the plastic is, to give people a second opportunity to drop off the bottles and cans that have a deposit on them for the Boy Scouts. So we'll talk to Joe to see if we might be able to do that, to make it a little bit easier for the folks to do that. Second thing, also related to the transfer station, we're all hoping to get to spring and summer pretty soon. But during the summer months, especially with the glass bottles, would certainly ask folks to just rinse them out a little bit before you put them in. The glass contain the same thing with any type of plastic, especially in the summertime, with especially the wine and the liquor bottles. It does attract a lot of insects, especially bees and wasps. It makes it very difficult for people to drop off their bottles and cans in the summertime. So if you could just give it a quick rinse, because I've been up there and I've seen spaghetti jar bottles with a quarter of the spaghetti sauce still in them, along with the metal top, which should go in the other bin. So we just ask you to be a little more conscientious if you can do that. So as far as public service now, that's all I have. Do you have anything you'd like to add as far as
No, that was great.
comes across in your mind? Mr. Sikansky, anything from a public service standpoint?
Yes, I consider it a public service announcement. I'd like to say it's my intention to run for re-election as a selectman this spring. So I look forward to the next few months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And on that note, it looks like we have our folks in for the country cover discussion. Come on down.
Thank you.
It was great timing.
Perfect.
Perfect timing.
I took the wrong way, like he did.
Tim Hood from the Bolton Country Covered.
Michelle Tuck, Tuck and Tuck Architects. We're here a third time.
Do you just love it so much?
So we had we have a few changes in the signs, so we wanted to come back to you.
Oh, sure.
A couple of them are minor, and a couple of them are design kind of oriented, but we wanted to run it all by you.
All right.
Color as well.
Okay.
So I'll show you what we have. Let's see if we can find it. We're here for a couple of reasons. First of all, Subway has changed their sign.
Okay.
It's a newer logo, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay.
So of course they want to see that.
That's fine.
The sizes are the same,
Mhm.
it's just a little bit different. Okay. that's-
Essentially, very close to same colors and stuff.
Yeah,
It's just
same thing.
The fonts.
Yeah, they changed, I think, yeah, it's pretty much the same. It changes on a little bit.
Okay.
So that's one. Two is, and that was what we proposed.
Right,
before. So
right.
Dunkin' Donuts is unchanged. This is Dunkin' Donuts' portion of that.
Right,
That's why
okay.
that's grayed out.
Okay.
But you can see that the change is very
Yeah.
minor. Also on Country Covered, we have two changes. One is a font change, which is really minor, where the letters are bigger at the ends and littler in the middle.
Okay.
You can see that. We didn't have that before.
That's nice.
And the sign company, let's see if I can find the page, wants to stretch the sign a little bit. So it would be about 2 feet longer.
Mhm.
It's still within this same
Mhm.
gable, and now you can see it. I don't know if you've driven by, but it's easy to imagine where the signs
Yeah,
will
it
go.
looks good.
Because there's something to look at now. But, so, two changes on that, font and 2 feet longer.
Right, but it's still within the area that, okay.
Yes,
Correct.
and still under your maximum by far.
Right, because that's what it was originally, so you're just essentially looking to pull it out. Yeah, I think that's gonna look better.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest.
It cleans it up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Fills the space.
And it'll be black and white like that?
Correct, yeah, we
Okay.
thought it was a cleaner look.
Oh. Yeah, it looks nice.
Michelle, wasn't there something about raised letters
Oh,
versus?
yeah,
Oh.
so the letters for the Country Cupboard would actually be raised, they'll stick out from the
Mhm.
sign. Now, I didn't actually go into that at all at the last
Mhm.
hearing, but, the sign company and, I mean, everybody together kind of talked about
Yeah.
that and thinking that that would be a nicer look if
Yeah,
you get a little
yeah.
bit of shadow line there.
I think Bolton Bean has
Similar, huh?
lettering, but yeah, that's like Bolton Bean. Yeah, yeah, well, it looks nice.
Thank you.
It's good.
We won't be back again.
You're always welcome. Anytime. Hey, if all the agenda items were like this, you could
Yeah,
come back. Super. Any questions from the audience? Okay. Do we have to, should just do approval?
I think just formally, I think.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the minor sign changes that the Country Cupboard has been asking for.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when do you think you're gonna be open?
Looks like 2 more weeks, we're
Cool.
shooting literally for the very end of February.
Okay, cool.
Is what we got pushed back a day with the floor, we had a floor issue. It wasn't perfectly level, so
Yeah.
they had to do a little spot. It cost me half a day, my contractor was going nuts, but.
Great.
So our next meeting is March 8th, if you plan to come.
Thank you.
Thanks, have a nice night. All right, so we're gonna go back down to Board of Selectmen business. Next up on the,
Do you want to do the warrant?
oh, I'm sorry. Trying to completely. Why don't we do the warrant? Let's review the draft annual town meeting warrant.
We'll do the warrant.
So,
So the warrant is in your packet, but we do have updates for the, or revisions for the planning board articles, since the planning board had their hearing last
Okay.
night.
so I'm gonna give you those plus the councils.
Oh, yes, the town council red line edits.
Okay, so this is, the planning board articles.
Just
that. Right,
Okay.
and then, this has town councils edits.
All right.
I haven't seen town council edits yet, so if there's anything confusing, I'll try to work through it. But really, the idea for tonight is just to get familiar with the concept of the articles and not
All right.
get too much into them.
Okay, all right, well, we'll just kind of, a lot of them we'll kind of skip over. Article 1 is accept the annual reports. I guess we're all working on those, and we'll be talking about ours a little bit later, so. Those are the annual reports that are inside are part of the annual report that we produce. Article 2 is unpaid bills for fiscal year 2017, and right now we have 3 of them. $1,340 for the animal inspector, $600 for Slaters, and $55 for the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. This basically is if we incurred some spending in 2017 that we didn't necessarily pay in the fiscal year, we're going to be paying it now, so hopefully there's not that much there. The operating budget is Article 3. We're still working on that, so we'll be getting more definitive numbers hopefully in the coming weeks. Looks like all right, so Article 4, it looks like we've done some
Apparently so.
Major edits.
Which is interesting because this is pretty similar to well, every year we have to renew revolving funds. That's the purpose of this article. I don't know if something has changed from a legal perspective or not, but
You took all the
I think they.
unnecessary verbiage out of it.
I think they misunderstood what the purpose of this article was, because they have this, to set the limits on total amounts that may be expended from each of the town's revolving funds. I think
I can explain it. So in past warrants, we have had an individual article for the revolving accounts. And Nanachka said some law changed where you can combine them into this one article, and then you'll see down below it says fund, and we've had them listed.
Okay.
Remember, we used to have the web-based municipal software article separate.
Okay.
And then the EMT program separate. Now it can be in one article.
Okay.
So if we were, in the future, to have additional ones, we would just add it to that list, and it would be in the one article.
Okay. Now, don't we have an article somewhere further down that just changes the wording of the account we set up for the wastewater treatment plant?
actually that's changed. We set it up last year as a stabilization fund.
Right.
I was hoping to be able to change it to a revolving fund. We can't do that with that particular fund because revolving funds are supposed to be only for basically funds that are populated by revenue. And this is not, and that's not a revenue account. So what we're going to do is there'll be an article that will propose to take a certain amount of money from the stabilization fund as an article, so we'll have an article with about $70,000 that's been approved. So if anything happens during the course of the year and we need to effect repairs on the water treatment facility, we'll spend from that article.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to check because it could have been included.
Because then it would have been, right.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Which was actually the next.
Which is actually
The next article.
Well,
Yeah.
the next article is numbered 6.
Yeah, it is because that'll get changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to
It's because we
resequence it.
combined two.
Okay, you just haven't renumbered them.
That's right.
All right, Article 6 is the transfer of funds from the stabilization. Okay, so what we just talked about.
Right, so what we propose to do is from the work that was done on this water treatment facility, from an article from special town meeting in 2016, we have a balance of $19,724 left over. So the idea is to take those remaining funds and apply that to the repair fund, if you will.
Gotcha.
So 50,000 plus 9, so basically $20,000. And when we replaced half of the membranes last year, it cost about $68,000. So if we have $70,000 available, we believe if necessary, we can replace the other half.
Okay, sounds good.
It's tempting, from someone who was on advisory, it's tempting when there's money available for someone not to find a reason to spend it. And I'm wondering if this is written narrowly enough that it will be restricted to just emergency repairs over on the transfer, the water treatment station, rather.
I wouldn't call them emergency repairs, I would call them necessary repairs.
Well, what's the difference between that and maintenance then?
Well, we're responsible for, I mean, there's ongoing maintenance, and then there's things that need to be replaced. The purpose for this is if something major happens, I mean, I hesitate to use the word emergency. Emergency implies you can't use the thing if it goes down, and that may not be the case. So I would say, you know, large ticket necessary repairs that we would not otherwise have funds for.
But it would be strictly for that facility, and this is written narrowly enough to make sure that happens.
Yes, it's strictly for the water treatment facility.
Right, and the stabilization fund from Article 2 of the special town meeting on December 12, 2016 was specific for the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, if we don't spend this money this year, we will just transfer it to another article next year?
No, it'll be an open article. We don't.
It just will stay open?
It will
Okay.
stay open.
All right.
But in another article, aren't we transferring, we're replenishing the stabilization fund?
No, not now. Now what we're doing is, rather than replenish it, which we would have, if we didn't do this, we would have just put another probably $10,000 into it. But since we can't make this a revolving fund, and the whole idea is we need to be able to access funds pretty quickly. So what we're doing is we're seeding this article with $50,000 plus $20,000, and it gets us to the same place.
Right, the 19,742 is the money that we didn't spend from the previous articles, we're replacing that number. So we're just moving that money over as opposed to appropriating.
And if we didn't do this, and if we left everything in the stabilization fund, we couldn't spend it without calling a special town meeting and getting a 2/3 vote, so we would not be able to react to a situation.
Okay. Now, is this the town stabilization fund, or was this the stabilization fund, was the stabilization fund that was set up for the wastewater treatment plant funded?
Yes.
Yes.
It was funded with,
And how much was put in there?
$70,000.
7,000. And
All
it's,
right,
it's,
so
and
let's
it's not the stabilization fund where we have the 900 grand, that's
Okay.
different.
Okay. Yeah, give it a different name, just stabilization fund, or else it's gonna cause confusion on the floor of town meeting.
Then we'll call it the wastewater treatment stabilization.
That's fine,
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever we called it last year when we created it,
that's
what
fine.
we'll call it.
All right, Article 7 is to rescind the borrowing from the permitting and new traffic lights and associated hardware for Stowe River Road. There was an article it was Article 6 of the June 8, 2015 special town meeting. And this is money that we did not use and did not spend, so we're rescinding the article.
Yes, and then the idea being that when we take another run at that, it'll be a whole new project, so we'll go through another
Right.
appropriation at the time.
Okay, sounds good.
So we didn't borrow anything
No,
against this?
No.
we didn't. So we need to rescind the borrowing order.
Okay. Article 8 is a designation of Neshoba, Squannacook, and
Nissatissit.
Thank you, Nissatissit rivers, that's as a wild and scenic rivers. We had some folks in last year to talk about this, and there's a small chunk of it that's in Bolton, so I think it's all a good thing. Doesn't cost us any money,
No.
so sounds good to me. All right. Article 9. So this is one of the zoning bylaws. All right. Let's see, the town will amend the code of town of Bolton, division of Part 3, cottage overlay district. Did you have any comments or questions or concerns from the folks last night? What did you do with this?
Let's see, what kind of comments? Well, some people worried about the density bonus. Some people worried about that we set a max limit of 2,400 square feet. Some people worried that that was too big, but we were kind of just setting that number. kind of as a guideline for, we want to give a developer the flexibility to design what's going to work for the market, so
Right.
we didn't want to set some number that would be too low that wouldn't allow it to be built.
Right.
So those, I think, were the major concerns.
Okay. Right. Did you guys vote to approve this
Yep.
one? Okay.
Yep.
All right. And this goes on forever.
It does.
Yeah,
To page 13.
legal document.
Okay, the next Article 10, which is amend the code of the Town of Bolton, Division 1, Part 3, zoning bylaws, dimensional schedule. So this is just a whole table of minimum square feet, and lot frontage, et cetera, et
Is
cetera.
this related to the previous article? The
No.
cottage overlay?
It
or-
is not, no.
I mean, so this is pretty much we're increasing the business lot coverages. So the square footage that would be allowed, based on the acreage of the land.
Mhm.
We're increasing it. First of all, it's all grouped into one currently, 8% across the board. We divided it out into limited business, and industrial,
Mhm.
and set specific percentages for each one of those, which are in that table. Definitely increasing it a lot from what it is, but we did studies on what could fit in the land, so that's kind of what we felt was the max thing that could fit in the land, again, to give the town the ability to let current businesses expand, or new businesses build a bigger business, so we can get more tax revenue and have more ability to utilize the land that we have zoned for those uses.
Mhm. Okay.
So just walk me through the percentage changes.
So like I said, it's currently 8%. It's currently 8% across the board, which is pretty much the lowest in the area, in the region. When we looked at comparable towns, they were 20 to 30%. Some towns that have like a downtown, even say, if for instance like the Cracker Barrel is covering pretty much all that lot. So some towns that have something similar to that even say bigger, but we went with, for business and limited business, to 20%, and for industrial 30%.
From 8% to 30% for
Yep.
industrial. What about in the business district?
Well, 20% for those.
So, when you compared these to other, towns, what towns were you looking at?
Stowe, Stowe, Berlin, Lancaster, Harvard. We looked at Acton.
We looked at quite a few towns,
Yeah.
Boxborough, Hopkinton. We did a pretty thorough analysis of other communities.
And what was the range?
I would say the range was anywhere from 10% up to 30%. Actually, some communities, but communities that were probably not very similar to Bolton,
Right.
even with the 50%,
Right.
but that's obviously
Yeah,
not the direction we want to go.
yeah.
And then the limited recreation business district?
We didn't change that. That's just golf courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so industrial-wise, if you, I don't know how much time you want to spend, but if you think about, like Paragon, I mean, you don't hear any but complaints about Paragon or, what's going on there, traffic, there's no issues with it. And if you go inside that building, it's a full-scale manufacturing facility. It's not, and we gain, I think, 130,000 roughly in taxes from that. We really want to utilize, the industrial is the most important to us, I think. We really want to utilize that land. There's actually, not many people know this, but there's an empty industrial lot to the east of Cobham on that same side of the road. And I'll be presenting an example showing what a 30% coverage would look like on that lot. And the other thing on industrial, we also added, it's going to 30%, but we added 33% open space requirement, which means, there'd be some remaining untouched land, so if you think like, I don't want to say Route 9, but how it's just a big grass open land running up to a building, that wouldn't exist because we have a 33% open space requirement. So we're allowing the building to grow, but we're also making sure that there's some land preserved for buffer area and stuff like that, and we show that in the example. It was just, We just, and so there's 2 lots in Cobham. One of the buildings is already 30%, the other one's
9%.
9%, so, they could expand that second building.
So Cobham right now is 1 lot, but they are
Well, they have 2
offering
lots.
it for sale as 2 lots, like the
No, they have 2
little
lots.
building and the
They have
big-
2 buildings,
Uh-huh.
and each building's on its own lot. The one in the back, I believe, is the one in the back that's 30%, or the one in the front?
No, it's the one in the front, I believe that's.
Yeah, so that front building couldn't be expanded, that's as big as, right now it's 22% over, but even in the new numbers, they wouldn't be able to expand it, but they could expand the building in the back.
So has that always been 2 lots, or they've subdivided that?
I believe it's always been 2 lots, but I'm not 100% on that.
I mean, so, what I say is, we're never going to rezone residential land to business, so that's not an option to gain, tax revenue that isn't from the residential area. The only option we have is to maximize our use of what is currently zone business.
Right, yeah, no, I just, Paragon is a huge building. I don't know what percentage of coverage is that now?
It's not 30%,
Yeah.
it's significantly lower than 30%, but every site is different, every site is gonna have its own constraints.
Yeah.
That particular property does have a lot of wetlands on it, so even probably if they wanted to do 30%, they couldn't do it. Again, this is just a max, building coverage that they can work with.
Paragon's not full.
So
Cobham's empty. So I'm just wondering where this need is coming from. Like, has anybody expressed an interest in doing this other than the planning board? Like, have any businesses approached you saying, as Paragon said, we'd really like to expand?
Well, if you think back to 5 years ago, not necessarily thinking industrial, but the Kane property, they wanted to do development that would have been a huge financial benefit to the town. That didn't happen because they didn't have the space required. The coverage wouldn't allow for them to do what they wanted to do.
Well,
So
it didn't happen because it was voted down.
Well, exactly.
At the town meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if the town votes us down, then so be it.
Let's talk about the Kane So limited business district, that's the Kane property, right? That's
They have a
limited-
combination.
Yeah.
I think it's primarily business. I think it's business,
Okay,
yeah,
so that's going from 8%
to
to
20%.
20%.
All right, I think we should move on.
Yeah.
We just wanted to do a highlight. Article 11 is amendment to the Code of the Town of Bolton. Basically for increasing the maximum lot coverage in the mixed-use village overlay district from 10 to 25%.
So that's just the current,
Keep it with the same.
Yeah. And it's a little bit higher because, it's supposed to give a carrot to the developer to do the mixed use, so if it remained at 10%, then it just didn't make sense. If we happen to expand to the 20%,
Right.
then to get the carrot from the mixed use.
Right, and there's not much, there's only a limited amount of land that's zoned for the.
Yep,
village
it's specific lots.
Yep, okay. Article 12, again, another zoning, it's just some amendments to driveways and parking.
Well, it's more than that. Our parking bylaw is I think it's a few sentences, and it's a very static bylaw where so many square feet of building, have to be at so much square feet of parking.
Right.
That's where we currently are at.
Right.
Which actually, it calls for way more parking than is needed and a lot more impervious. This looks at the specific use and will drastically reduce the impervious space for parking. So you don't need as big a parking lot, and it's more dynamic on the type of use, but also we add the ideas of shared parking and off-site parking. So if there's 2 side-by-side businesses, that, the one's a nighttime business, one's a daytime business, and the planning board thinks that, you don't need a separate spot for each thing, you could share a spot. This is another way to try to reduce parking.
Right.
This is still a way to, and this bylaw is pretty much exactly in Stowe.
It's very similar to stuff.
So our bylaw was very outdated compared to all other towns.
Right, okay. All right, Article 13 was amendment to Town Code of the Town of Bolton. basically to regulate recreational marijuana establishments, and my understanding is that this bylaw is in here to basically tighten up with what the state is suggesting, to give us a little more control.
Right, yeah, if we don't do it, it's whatever the state laws are, that's what we'll stick with, but it's tightening it up, yeah.
That one. Holy mackerel, this is another one.
The fight to close all loopholes.
Thank you. Here we go. Article 14. This one is to allow the establishment and to allow for marijuana cultivators with a Tier 1 license in the residential district. My understanding is that this bylaw came sort of late in the game, and this was an outcome of, you had an informational session on January 24th, where you had a list of the bylaws. I think you posted something on Facebook.
Well, I just posted the agenda.
You posted the agenda, but there was also a link to a PDF that contained, but this article wasn't in there. So I think we had some you and I had some dialogue yesterday and today that this was a result of a couple of individuals at the informational session who sort of pushed for this additional bylaw. From my perspective, obviously it's important for the town to weigh in on this stuff, but my concern is that you were reviewing the other marijuana-related bylaws in the fall. You had 3 or 4 meetings. This one sort of came up between January 24th and yesterday. And my concern is that not many people really know what's going on with this particular bylaw. And, my guess is that, I don't know whether you voted to accept it or not, but my guess is that you're not gonna have any public hearings. My concern is that people don't really realize that this is an article in the warrant. Personally, for a couple of people who opted to want this, I mean, if a couple of people want a bylaw, this doesn't necessarily mean that some town board needs to sponsor a bylaw. I would have preferred if you pushed back and said to do this as a citizen's petition, just like we did Camp Virginia, and I believe what's going to be happening, the Paris Climate Accord, where I think it will allow the citizens to have much more dialogue on it. So my concern is that I think the vast majority of town doesn't even know that this is on here. And unless someone brings it up and there's more public discourse, you're gonna have people coming to town meeting not realizing that this is in here. And that's just my concern.
Well, I think there's gonna be a ton of discussion on it in the next 3 months. You're probably gonna hear it nonstop. I think it's a super controversial bylaw for sure. It didn't just come up in the last meeting though. Teresa Sawyer, a couple months ago was asking about, because farms are in the residential zone, and she wanted farms to have the ability to do growing, not just in the industrial zone. So we did talk about it in that aspect. You are right in saying that, the aspect of a Tier 1 in a residence was brought up late, for sure. But
again, that's one individual.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I've heard any swelling mandate that people are pining to grow marijuana.
I mean, we did have a huge number of people that wanted it everywhere. They wanted farms. We did hear in the survey, if you read through the comments of the survey, people wanted farms to be able to have it, and this would allow farms to have it.
Your survey questions specifically did not include Tier 1 in a residential.
No, but there was a spot for comments.
Comments or not, your 7 questions didn't include.
No, right, because we didn't intend it.
Right, I understand. All I'm saying is it's fine for people to weigh in on it. My concern is that this came in very late in the game. And unless someone brings this up, I don't think the vast majority of the town of Bolton is gonna realize this, because, you know, you're not having any more public hearings on it. You know, I became aware of it the day after the informational session. So, you know, I was a little surprised about it too, and then surprised to see this. My concern is that the residents of this town really don't know that this article is now included as a warrant article to be discussed. And there has not been, other than a few folks who came to your meeting, that there really hasn't been significant debate on this, you know, to weigh in on the pros and cons prior to town meeting.
I have no problem with, you know, if the planning board can hold another informational session, advertising this specific tier 1 residential and just opening up a discussion for, you know, to try to, you know, if you're against it, if you're for it, come in, we're gonna discuss it. I have, you know,
I mean,
definitely can
at
hold
the
that.
very least, I think, but I would do it as a public hearing. I wouldn't just do it as an informational. I'd go before.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because I want it to be discussed. I mean, I've told you my personal feelings on it.
I know.
So, but,
I mean, because there are implications here where.
yeah, it's huge.
The huge implications, and, you know, someone's growing marijuana next door, and, you know, then Bolton becomes a haven for whatever. And, you know, they're gonna be pro and con on
I mean,
both
they
sides.
could be growing it next door to
Yeah,
you anyway.
we can all grow 6 to 12 plants, so that's, everybody in town could do that. I haven't started. My kids are kind of too young to have that around, you know, but.
I mean, so personally.
But you're not gonna grow 6 to 12 plants. This is for selling it.
Yeah.
This is a commercial we're talking about a commercial operation, someone who is growing it for commercial gain, which is different than your 6 to 12
Let
plants.
me make the observation that, and this is a process observation, it's not for or against the article, but my process observation is that this is being thrown together quickly. You're not giving yourself an opportunity to refine it. And if there's any amendments introduced on the floor of town meeting, it will turn into a big mess.
Yeah. Well, so I knew it was going to be a big mess.
Well,
And so when
hold on. But I think you've got to decide, do you want to bring a big mess to town meeting? Or do you want to go and, you know, get it refined and so on and so forth, and bring it in a proper, perhaps more acceptable form at some future date?
So what we ended up doing is, as you can see, there's 2 articles there. You know, as the chairman, I said, the only way I would possibly entertain this is if we completely isolate it from our base bylaw, which I feel needs to be passed, into a completely separate bylaw. So the first bylaw has to pass, and then the second one is kind of like an amendment to that. So you can see how it's worded, we kind of amend that last one. So if the first one failed, then we would just skip over this one, but.
But it could taint your first one.
Well, I was worried about that, that's why I isolated it out, but I isolated it out into its own article, but it could still taint it in general.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I still think we're gonna make it.
The taint is, if we pass this one, that makes the second one eligible.
True. And that was brought up actually yesterday.
Okay. It's your choice.
Yeah. Martha?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, I believe that Ms. Sauer was not representing herself, she was chairman of the Agricultural Commission, I believe, when she brought this up.
Well,
I know.
well,
She wasn't here when she came and
well,
just that.
the thing is, I did check, and there are, on the current Bolton Town website, there are no meeting agendas for the Agricultural Commission, nor are there any meeting minutes, so I have no idea if the Agricultural Commission met or voted or had any informational sessions or anything on that. So, you know, until we see that, you know, if they had a meeting and voted and to speak, that's fine, but if there was no meeting and no vote and no minutes, then they can't Teresa can't represent herself as.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just thought I'd mention that because that was
Yeah,
there.
Important distinction.
Yeah. Teresa?
So, I'll make sure the meetings get up there, but it was voted on, and we've been working with the planning board for months about this. The delay has been that the draft regulations didn't come out till the end of December. And so once we had a resident of the town come forward that they were very interested in doing this, we approached the planning board again. So this is not from the hip or anything else. This is a way for...
Well, no, Trace, it is. I mean, you can do whatever planning and discussion you want. The fact that I went through and looked at all the planning board agendas from April of last year through now, there were exactly 4 sessions where these bylaws were discussed. And there were only listed 5, not 6. The Tier 1 cultivation was never listed as one of these until it was brought up on January 24th. In fact, the list of bylaws that were going to be reviewed based upon the Facebook post and the link that Eric provided didn't even include Article 14. So that's fine, you might have been working on it for months, but what I'm saying is we're now almost at the end of the process, and there has, in my opinion, there not has been sufficient debate amongst the residents of this town, and I believe that probably most everybody in this town does not know that this article is on the warrant. That's my issue. I'm all for let the people discuss and let the people decide what they want to do. My issue is that you've been working in a vacuum, and this came out between January 24th and yesterday. That's my issue.
The state issued the draft regulations December 22nd. They've just become available. They're not even finalized yet.
That's fine. But my point still stands.
So my understanding from the resident who's interested, she is going to hold educational sessions between now and the meeting. So
Well,
the Agricultural Commission intends to give her whatever support we can to make this happen.
Well, again, I have a big problem that we're gonna implement a bylaw because one person wants it.
No, the Agricultural Commission would like to see local farms have the opportunity to use this to diversify their business, if they so wish.
Does Article 13 take care of that?
No. Because it's only industrial and business. Farms are on residential. So originally, we didn't want to include residential because we didn't want to taint our bylaw. We wanted it to pass. We wanted to create a very limited zone where you can do it to make sure something passes and we're not subject to state laws.
Well, then what about farms? And what about creating some minimum?
Well, farms and residential, so there's nothing we can do about that.
I understand, but if you exclude it to only farms and residential.
That was something I brought up.
Or you have some type of minimum acreage or maximum acreage or something along.
I brought that up, but, the room wasn't very receptive to it. I brought up putting a minimum acreage.
Because this basically opens it up to every citizen in this town can become a Tier 1 cultivator.
Yeah, that's true.
So it could be so you brought up like a pot farm overlay?
I said, well, let's set the minimum acreage. You can't, there's no defined farm zone or agricultural zone, it's all residential. So I brought up maybe we set a minimum of 5 acres.
Yeah.
Something along that notion.
Pot overlay district.
Well, so, the state is changing fast and everybody is gonna have to get used to it. This board hasn't seen a liquor license that it hasn't loved, so I don't see what the difference is.
And
I
so
think
the
we
other,
have to be open
for, it being right to farm, just so people know, the state doesn't include marijuana as right to farm, so that's why farms can't do it in the residential. The only way to do it, actually, Teresa did talk to us, and we did talk about it, and we talked to town council about it. The town council said if you want to do it for farms and residential, you have to pass a specific local zoning bylaw allowing it in residential. So we did talk about it in regards to farms, but the whole Tier 1, we didn't talk about Tier 1 until after December because we didn't even know about it. Right?
So the whole reason Tier 1 there is a Tier 1 to Tier 4 is because local farms push back. Because small farms cannot participate in medical marijuana in the industry. It's only designed for large industrial corporations. And so there was a big pushback by small farms in Massachusetts to allow for farms to participate in the recreational marijuana market. And that's why, and we were waiting for those draft regulations to come out in order to do anything.
And that's fine, but my statement still stands. This has come out at the last minute, and the vast majority of the people in this town probably don't know this article is in the warrant. And I think it's doing a disservice to the voters of Bolton that there's not more discussion and debate on this to at least educate them about this so that they're informed. Because, you know that not everybody has a Facebook account and not everybody watches these shows.
Yeah.
And that's their choice. But I think we have an obligation to go, especially for something like this, to go out of our way to make sure that folks are informed about this, as opposed to this coming up at the last minute and then there's no more discussion about it.
Well, we'll definitely set a public hearing date. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, Article 15, this is acceptance of the local marijuana sales tax. I guess it's just necessary to be able to...
Even if the others fail,
Right.
we want this to pass, because if the others fail,
Right.
they can still come in.
Article 16 is purchase of Class A uniforms for the fire department. This article is here, this has to do with some contract negotiations. The result, and we're looking at putting an article here as opposed to including the figure in the budget, so that we look at it as a one-time expense. And that's basically that's there. I mean, we need to spend the money regardless, but we're doing it this way to have as a one-time purchase as opposed to putting it in the budget. Article 17 is purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus. This is also for the fire department to refill their air bottles. They have a system that's been failing. We're having discussions with advisory and fire department on the purchase of that equipment. Article 18 is a purchase of engine for replacement. This is also something that's come up at the last minute. The fire department wants to replace engine 4 with a more versatile vehicle. It costs us $275,000. We've had a number of conversations with the fire department along with advisory, and obviously with the pending retirement of Chief Menser, we need to have a few more discussions with that and possibly have the new chief weigh in on that. So at least for the moment, the article is still in the warrant. Article 19 is establish a speed limit of 25 miles per hour inside a thickly settled business district.
Or business.
Or business district. I thought this was the acceptance of some of the changes. This almost looks a little bit different than what I read before.
This is related to the Municipal Modernization Act?
Yes.
Right.
Again, I haven't had a chance to review the edits from town council, so I can't tell you what's changed. All I can tell you is, for people watching, the purpose of the article is if we, as a result of the Municipal Modernization Act that Governor Baker sponsored and it was passed, I think, in August of 2015, any town that adopts this statute has the option, if they so choose, in any thickly settled or limited business area, to lower the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25. Without adopting this statute, we don't have that option.
Right, and this pretty much pertains to 117.
To the high school area, I think, specifically. So
there are very few thickly settled areas.
Right. And then Article 20 is something very similar, to be able to establish safety zones with a speed limit of 20 miles an hour. So basically, it's another aspect of that same.
Yes, if we adopt this statute, then if we meet the certain criteria that the state lays out for speed zones, then we would have the option of lowering something down to 20 miles an hour.
Yes, Martha.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. The pan section from 85 down to 392, where the Skinner, the grist mill and the sawmill were, at one time we had 12 children living in that area. That was, as the state DOT qualifies it, a thickly settled area. for a distance of so less than 200-foot frontage and all that. We have a speed limit of 40 now. Would this only be reduced from 30 to 25? Or could it reduce 40 to 30 or something?
Anything that
Because
is,
it's like we're second-class citizens over there. It's a zoo.
anything that's truly a thickly settled area is already 30 miles an hour. So we can only go from 30 miles an hour to 25.
But this says, for any roadway that is not a state highway.
117 is under a local control, and because it's under local control, it will qualify under the statute.
Well, only to 85. The state controls from 495 to 85, and then the rest is local down the Stowe line.
That's correct.
But I can't believe that we haven't qualified as a thickly settled area for the last 3 decades or more. Well, I mean, the houses are all old. They've been there for a long time. I don't know, sometimes we just feel like second-class citizens down there as far as the traffic. Thank you.
Mary Jim Elkhorn Road, just to clarify that, there are qualifications to be a thickly settled area. It has to be a quarter of a mile long, and I'm not sure of the distances of the structures between each other.
Less than 200-foot frontage.
So, yeah, so if it qualifies, then we're all set, but
Yeah,
That's right.
I mean, we can look into it, but, you
Yeah.
know,
Thank you.
this is basically 19 and 20, which is just to get the stuff on the books, and then there is more work that has to be done in order to do that. Article 21 is a Route 117 pedestrian crossing safety improvements. And I believe this is by Mechanic Street? Yes, Mechanic
Yes,
Street.
and from the Public Way Safety Committee.
Have you reviewed this with MassDOT?
no.
I think just to be safe, you should, just to make sure that they're okay with it. You know, because I mean, there's some things we can and cannot do, and, you know.
I believe we're fine, but we'll.
Yeah, I think just
we'll
to make
check
sure
that off and
we're
make sure.
safe, just double check with
Okay,
them.
so I'll talk to Joe Lynch, you know, he has, you know, communications with them.
Why that particular intersection?
I'm sorry?
Why that particular intersection?
Well, it's at the crosswalk. We only have 4 crosswalks in town. And we went back and forth between, you know, crossing at Water Quadrant versus the
Yeah.
Mechanic. Most of our complaints are crossing at the Mechanic, Main Street crosswalk. Also with the Houghton building now in use. And one of the reasons why you're now in this building instead of over there was because of having to cross that road at night.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so Article 22 is truck repair for $35,000. Next is mostly capital articles. Article 23 to deal with engineering and draining issues at South Bolton Road and Spec Clipper Road. This was something that was on a previous warrant a couple of years ago, which was taken off due to funding issues, but that's back on there now. Article 24 is a skid steel loader with multi-seasonal attachments for the DPW department. Article 25, are we...
That can be deleted right now.
Right, Article 25, which was sewage treatment capital plan reserve fund, which we can take out, so we've just saved ourselves 80 grand. Hey, it's 80 grand is 80 grand. Article 26, water supply compliance upgrades.
We need to keep that on for now, we're working the issue, but
Right,
for
right,
now,
right.
we need to keep it on.
What is this?
It relates back to years ago when the gasoline or oil, I forget which it was, spill or leak took place at the DPW property.
Oh, yeah,
And
I remember.
okay,
Gasoline.
Okay. Article 27 is a plow sander for the DPW department. Article 28 is a culvert replacement Long Hill Road at West Pond for $250,000. Article 29 is here, given the fact that we have a retiring chief of police, I'm sorry, a fire chief, that we had talked about this some years ago. but the possibility of discussion, we really haven't had any discussion yet. This is just being put on here just as a placeholder, but we will be having further discussions about this, is to rescind the strong fire chief designation, which was something that was done at a special town meeting back on October 7, 1930. Just as quick, the whole strong chief, weak chief thing is, right now, the fire chief reports directly into the Board of Selectmen and not into the town administrator. However, the chief of police reports into the town administrator, and what this would do is make it an even level playing field where both the chief of police and the fire chief would report into the town administrator. And it'll also give us some latitude in terms of appointments as well. All right. Okay, then we have a couple from the schools. Article 30, flooring replacement of floor and service schools for 18.5, interior painting. Article 31 for 11.5, column repair at Emerson School. This would be the 22 section for 15.7. Article 33 is mechanicals for replacement of some failing heating system controls at Floor and Service School for 43,175. Article 34, based upon the formation of the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee last year, they've come back to us with some recommendations for an initial sum of money to do some preliminary, this would be engineering work to figure out what the engineering work would be and come up with a list of priorities, and they're asking for $150,000. We've just discovered that there's a potential grant that we might be able to apply for that would actually cover this. So, you know, we're debating whether or not to leave this on here or go for the grant and possibly save us $150K. And then Article 35 is a citizen's petition. If you recall, a few meetings ago, Bolton Local came in and asked us to endorse a non-binding resolution about endorsing the 2015 Paris Climate Accord. And at that meeting, we discussed, I thought it would be a better avenue that a citizen's petition be done to allow the citizens to weigh in directly, and that's what that is for. And that's the warrant as it stands now. There are a lot of things that still need to be filled in, summaries and explanations, and we'll be working on that as we go along.
There should be another version out to the board next week.
Okay. All right, so getting back to the Board of Selectmen business, to review and vote on the complete streets policy. I know we discussed this previously, and I know that there are a couple of minor tweaks and edits in there, so I didn't see anything onerous that was changed, so I'm fine with it unless anybody has a question or an issue on it. You good with it, Bob?
I'm fine.
Okay, then let's take a motion to vote on the complete streets policy as attached.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Yes.
Review and approve the agreement between the town of Bolton and the Bolton Conservation Trust for town common maintenance and support. I read it, and I think it provides sufficient protections for the town of Bolton. So, anytime another group is willing to help and pay for some stuff, I'm all for it. Gentlemen, have any questions or?
Well, there's no one here to represent the trust?
No, we didn't have anybody available tonight to come in. My normal liaison was going to come in, but he anticipated this was going to be on the agenda schedule prior to when we changed it to get away from school vacation.
Would you want to have someone come in?
Well, I don't see any advantage to the town that's signing this. So, you know, given our recent experience with making a decision, if the group doesn't like the decision, they get to talk to us a second time anyway. I would just assume not have any discussion unless they're here.
Sounds fine. We can table this to the next
Put
meeting.
this back on the agenda for
Yeah,
Monday.
that's fine.
Yes.
That's fine. I think it will be a quick discussion, but that's fine. So let's move it to the next meeting. Review and approve the grievance policy procedure policy for non-union employees.
The reason this is on here, first of all, I'd like to make it clear there are no grievances. In fact, I'm pleased to say that in my 9 years, we've never had a non-union grievance, and very few union grievances. But that being said, we felt like we needed to pull together a comprehensive grievance procedure that we had. I would say it was probably informal at best, but things were good. So to get this codified, I thought was important.
I mean, I read it, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
So if you could vote.
I move we accept the grievance procedure policy as presented.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're good. Next up is review and approve the request to abate the outstanding real estate taxes on the parcel donated to the town of Bolton by Deborah Bonazzoli, which is parcel map D2-20 for Q3 and Q4.
And this is the land that the town acquired at the end of December. So there were taxes anticipated for Q3 and Q4, so the board needs to go through the process to waive those taxes since we now own the land.
Right, and the taxes due are for Q3 is $143.29, and for Q4 is $142.52. I'm fine with, to abate that.
I move that we abate the taxes for Bonazola property accepted on map 2D-20 for the third and fourth quarter of fiscal 18.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Next up is review and approve the Board of Selectmen's annual report for 2017.
Okay. Here you go. There's 4 copies. Wait, I have one somewhere. So what is attached there is the annual report, and then on the back there are some suggested comments that Stan provided.
Yeah, I have just some suggested minor modifications to it. Basically just added a couple little things that are worthwhile to mention, so. So you have the original and.
Oh, I see. So it was very, okay.
Just a slight change to the first paragraph. I added the full amount. I added it was $271,855. Just add a little note about Harold Brown, a little note about the town common, a little note about the citizens' petition to the Girl Scout camp, and that's basically it.
So what's wrong with we put our trust in the town meeting process and its decisions as well as
I'm not sure what that really meant.
well, town meetings vote and that we respect those votes and we take them as action plans in terms of moving forward. It's just kind of basic to town government. I mean, this is our report, it's not really about other boards and committees, so just, wonder the need to change the first 2 sentences.
Well, then perhaps you can explain why you need the first sentence there.
So as we look back over the accomplishments of 2017, it is a good time to recommit ourselves as a board to leadership, that emphasizes engagement, transparency, and healthy, respectful debate. These are just ideals. That's what I would say about them. We put our trust in the town meeting process and its decisions, as well as honoring the partnerships between our professional staff and citizen volunteers. So that's just, basic ideals for the Board of Selectmen. I don't think anything there is very partisan or controversial.
I don't know if I should have an opinion. I've been on the board for such a short period of time.
No, you're allowed. You're allowed.
I like a document that tells me what it is they're going to tell me, tells it to me, and then goes back and recapitulates the high points to make sure I got it. There's no focus on the opening paragraph, with or without the edits.
Well, it was either leave it the way it was or take it all out.
Well, that's
So-
why I said,
So
I've been here a short time and perhaps I shouldn't.
Right. My first inclination was to take it all out, to your point, but I decided, well, let me generalize it a little bit and see how that goes.
Well, I think my comments were not preferring either one of the two versions. But I'd like to see something that says, here's the highlights of the year. Let me go and tell you some more about each of them. And at the end, it says, and as you can see, X, Y, Z got accomplished, and so on and so forth. I will say it is curious, though, that this Board of Selectmen report for the year does not recognize the mid-year departure of one or the arrival of another. It would seem to me that would be a significant event in the life of the Board of Selectmen. No?
Yeah, well, I mean...
I'm not trying to get my name here, I'm just surprised what...
Well, I would say, other than the edits, it is this gentleman's annual report, so just...
I'm just, again...
Yeah, I don't think an annual report has to be a blow-by-blow of every single event, but we can keep working on this and you can add a paragraph about that you think it's important for people at town meeting to read. This is kind of the positive highlights of the last year.
And to your point, if you want to make it more succinct, I think starting with many activities took place, the last two sentences would probably...
But it's not clear to me what the goal of this document is.
It's just to highlight some of the events and activities that took place in the past year. That's all it really is. If you look at some of the past ones, we kind of did this, we kind of did that, this passed, that didn't pass, this happened, that happened, this didn't happen, this happened really well.
Yeah, in the past, it's been more of a blow by blow,
Okay.
but this focuses mainly on two areas. One is kind of our efforts related to 117 and feeder roads, and the other is grants. So it's been a focus on two areas that we made a lot of progress on in the last year.
It doesn't provide any context to going into town meeting.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, this is...
It's not intended to.
So have you read
This is not going to be in the
read
warrant.
town reports?
Yeah, this is the annual report.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
No, in effect, it's a year in review.
Yeah.
All right.
So maybe Linda, you could send Bob the last 3 years that you sent me for kind of a reference.
No, I mean, if you want to continue doing that, that's fine with me.
In fact, Jonathan had a couple of comments that were more forward-looking to 18 and possibly town meeting, and I suggested that he remove them because it really is a year-end review.
Right, it's looking back as opposed to looking ahead. Yep. I'd be fine if you want to change the first paragraph, because like I said, I was planning either leaving it that way or taking it out altogether, to your point. And I just made a few tweaks to Jonathan's document, just adding a couple of events.
You know, I guess what I'd like to see is an opening paragraph that tells people what to expect between now and the end of the Board of Selectmen section. Here's what I'm about to tell you. That kind of thing. And the rest of it is, you know, it's a matter of personal preference. But that would be the big thing for me is, you know, we made significant progress in these three areas. Grants, 117, and whatever else you want to put in there. And then you go into each of those areas and tell them what the progress was.
Well, why don't we look at this next time, and you can write that, and we'll look at that.
Linda, when does this need to be done?
Oh, like next week, the latest. It was really, I'd planned to have it done tomorrow, so.
You know, my objections to it are not substantial. I'm fine with it.
Do you want to?
I mean, it's not like, you know, whether I write this or someone else writes it, we're not gonna get the Nobel Prize, so.
We're not?
No,
Oh,
sorry.
jeez.
And it's not gonna be sold as a screenplay, so,
What, if you had some comments about the first paragraph, you want to take a stab at it? Because it really, if you look back at the last 3 years, it really is just sort of, okay, the purpose of this is, okay, just to summarize some of these things that took place. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on one thing or theme, because obviously we were involved in a lot of stuff.
yeah.
So it's just basically a summary of, okay, you know, over the past year, you know, we did all these things, or these things occurred, kind of thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, I want to focus on these three things and how they unfolded. It's just basically sort of a summary. And you'll find that most of the other departments write it that way as well.
I think advisory is, you know, a little bit more, you know, a little bit more literate. If you read what they wrote for this last year, it's not like this is what we're gonna do, this is what we, you know, it's not a basic grade school essay. There are some big ideas in there, so,
I'm okay.
What?
I'm okay with the first paragraph in, or I mean, you could, it's a tight deadline, and, you know, I'm done pulling all-nighters to do my term papers.
We really do need to.
Oh, I know.
I know.
I know. Well,
so, you know, I prefer to keep my paragraph in, but if you wanna make changes, you know, it's kind of a mashup, you know. I mean, I think, Stan, you threw some things in.
no, I think the reflection should be all boards and committees. We are the select board. And I think, you know, it's our responsibility to say that and reflect that for all boards and committees. The edits that I made read, as we look back over the accomplishments of 2017, it is a good time to reflect that all boards and committees emphasize engagement, transparency, and healthy and respectful debate. We should also thank the partnerships between our professional staff and citizen volunteers that make the town of Bolton a vibrant community to live in. Many activities took place within the town government and the town in general. It is our privilege to serve Bolton and report on the activities of the past year. And then we go into specifics.
Okay, let's go with that.
And you're okay with the addition of a couple little events that took place, the Harold Brown
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah.
All right. All right, well then, I'll make a motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen annual report for 2017 per the edited version that we have here.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, cool. All right. Next up is to call the caucus for March 5th, 2018, and to execute the notice. So, coming up on Monday the 15th, we have town caucus to nominate. I know that in the census there was something that came out, so the caucus, the Citizens Caucus, the voters of the town of Bolton will meet in caucus at the Bolton Public Library, 738 Main Street on Monday, March 5th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. to nominate the town officers. The caucus will be held under the provisions of Chapter 53, Section 121 and Section 118 of the Massachusetts General Laws and will be called to the order by the town clerk. Do I have a motion to call the caucus?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. 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 Melinda. All right. Next is to execute the common victular license for Dunkin' Donuts approved by the Board of Selectmen on February 1st, 2018. So we've already approved this, we just need to sign it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Oh. Bob. Next up is a request from Bolton Access Television to release funds in the amount of $26,284.97 to the Bolton Access TV operations. Hey Teresa, how are you?
Teresa.
Hello, how are you all?
I'm fine.
I'm sick.
Did that chair just sink when you sat in it? It looks like.
It did. These are nice.
Okay, so yeah, we got, there was something in our packets that showed that that was the amount of money for the check.
The check, yeah.
Okay. So, any discussions?
Can you give us an update on what's going on with sound system at the high school for town meeting?
Well, that's what, Bob has been in touch with the company that made the, Bob Johnson,
Okay.
with the company that made the microphones to figure out what are better frequencies to put them at. And I'll end up going into the school and talking to them about having them changed over.
And Bob Johnson is their facilities?
No, he's a volunteer at Bolton Access TV.
Okay.
He's on our board.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
So,
All right, super.
So you guys are helping the high school out with their...
trying to.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. They should be as happy as we are to get them and to have them actually in the right channels. So,
Okay.
Any reason why the amount's gone down again a little bit?
Is that a Netflix effect?
we're sure hoping not.
Yeah, 'cause I
We
mean,
don't know, and it is bothersome.
I mean,
it's
it
been
was
going
as
up
high as
forever.
close to, what, 29 or 30 grand?
It went over 30.
Went to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're having more
And
and
since
more
then, it's going
households in town.
I know. We're hoping this is not a trend.
Well, let's hope not. Anyway, I'll take a motion to approve the release of funds.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't spend it in one place.
Salaries.
All right, so we'll do approve the bills and the payroll warrants, W18-11 and W18-11A, W18-12 and W18-12A, W18-13 and W18-13A, W18-14 and W18-14A, and last but not least, W18-15 and W18-15, I'm assuming that's A, since there is an A.
Yes.
The AFL.
A, yeah.
So moved. So,
Thank you.
second. I didn't realize I was being stared at.
No, I'm just waiting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up we have minutes. Minutes. We got a pile of them. All right, so we're gonna approve regular session minutes for June 29th, 2017, July 13th, 2017, September 28th, 2017, November 16th, 2017, December 7th, 2017, January 9th, 2018, and executive session minutes of December 7th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve?
So, can I take a motion on minutes where I wasn't present at?
Generally speaking, what I do is, if there are minutes for a meeting that I was not present at, I abstain.
Okay, well, they're looking for a second here.
Well,
Stan's allowed to say.
Okay.
I'll second them, and you were present for one.
I know I was present for one.
Okay.
I was just asking.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
All right. Alrighty.
Now we only have 3 executive
Did
sessions.
did everyone sign the warrant?
I did. Bob needs to sign.
Jonathan, I think there might have been a second page. Did you
Yes,
you got it?
never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good, good.
Actually, there are a couple here you can sign. Bob.
Okay.
This is a short one.
Bob, that one's for you. Signed.
It's 2 signatures there, right?
Yes, 1, 2.
Should I just announce all 3 of them?
Please.
Okay. While these gentlemen are still signing, we will be exiting out of open session and moving into executive session. We have 3 this evening. I will not be reconvening to open session for either of them. First one is executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, Bolton Dispatch Union, Local 286A, NASCOP IUPA, AFL-CIO, Dispatch Unit, or litigation, former dispatch unit, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, the board shall not reconvene to open session. Second session is an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the police union, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position. Again, the board will not reconvene to open session. And last but not least, an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the DPW union, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position. The board will not reconvene into open session. Do I have this motion to approve?
No.
To go in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Linda, roll call.
Sikansky,
Aye.
Wasaki,
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Okay.